What's going on, everybody? I'm Max Ralph.
Seth Engle.
Look at this. The first in-person 1-0 podcast. We got a new graphic. It's pretty sick. Today we are continuing our position previews. We got a little behind this week, moving into class and stuff. So got a little behind, but we are going to go with the secondary today. Not a whole lot of breaking news to touch on to kick this off, but we'll talk about the secondary. I think we are both in agreement that this is one of the strongest groups on this roster, and especially the safeties.
Yeah, I mean, out of the question marks on the team, I think the secondary is far from them. I think it's one of the best secondaries in college football. I'd say that pretty confident.
I was going to say, I'd say it could probably be top 5 secondary in college football.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the corners, Joey Porter Jr., he's been, pretty great in his, first couple of years at Penn State. Entering this year, high expectations. People expecting him to go, potentially first round in next year's NFL draft.
Yeah.
A ton of expectations for him this year. Last year, there were some issues with penalties. Other than that, pretty strong. He's a really long corner, athletic freak. He's a guy he could be hit or miss. If he works on, not, holding on to guys too much and drawing those flags, I feel like Joey Porter Jr. could end up being one of the best corners in college football this year.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the measurables, like you said. The issue has really only been the penalties.
Yeah.
And, he's aware of it too. But the interesting thing is that, you may not see a huge decrease in those this year. We talked to him last week, and he was saying, the whole MO with Manny Diaz has been aggressiveness and, aggressiveness on defense, turnovers. And somebody asked him, how are you playing with that aggressive mentality while trying to play without the turnovers? And he was like, well, you can't always have one without the other. So you may not see them go away, but he's physically gifted, whatever. He'll be fine, and if he's not a first rounder, he's not going to drop past the third round, in my opinion.
I mean, the potential's all there.
Yeah.
On the other side, Kalen King expected to make a huge leap this year. I mean, he was one of the guys right off the bat in his true freshman year. Well, he came in the spring, at the end of 2020, and he was drawing all this praise. Kalen King.
Was he the takeaway king in spring?
He may have been. I remember he was drawing a ton of the praise, just, out of all the freshmen. They're like, this kid's probably the most advanced. He comes in, appears in all 13 games.
Yeah.
Only made one start, but, he still played, pretty good.
He played a lot.
Yeah, he played good minutes. So he'll step into that other, corner spot this year. That should be a really exciting duo.
Yeah, I think they're great. The interesting thing, I talked to Kalen King at Media Day, just kind of what's different for him this year versus last year. And what he said was last year he didn't have a great grasp on the defense. And he'd said, I was playing mostly just off of football instincts and my skill, which is crazy to think that he played 13 games in the Big Ten without really grasping defense.
Well, that's how it can be too. When you're a true freshman, everything's moving really fast for you, especially in those first few games. And they kind of just put him right in there.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, you're obviously pretty advanced, just as a pure football player. Now he has the second year where he's kind of able to sit down and fully think about things from a football perspective. Work on his IQ and stuff like that. So I think we should see him continue to improve this next year, even after a strong, fall in 2021.
Yeah, he's gonna be like a true top tier cover corner.
100%. He's different than JPJ for sure.
Yeah.
Which I think is good, and it also reminds me a lot of what Penn State's doing with their safety room too. Different guys. Yeah. Brisker and Jair Brown last year. Completely different players.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that, but I think Jair Brown is more like Brisker this year than anything.
But it's interesting. It's shifting the roles a little bit.
Yeah. But to continue with the corners, there's Daquan Hardy. He's going to be the nickel again, which, it's hard to overstate what he meant to the team last year because he was super underrated. He had a really good season in the slot.
Yeah.
And his speed is really good. We could see him doing some kick returns. We could see him doing some gunner work on the punt team. He was just really, really solid at the nickel corner spot last year, and I expect him to be good. And then the depth behind those three is just really strong. I mean, Johnny Dixon might even be fighting to start some games. Johnny Dixon was kind of a question mark this year. He played a lot last year as a South Carolina transfer, but wasn't awesome. He was good enough, but he wasn't awesome. I feel bad for him. He got that Jaden Reed one-on-one against Michigan State last year, the game winner. He just got absolutely mossed. But the thing was, James Franklin went out of his way to say Johnny Dixon was having a good training camp at Media Day.
Well, Johnny Dixon's apparently, he's up there with Takeaway King of the fall.
Yeah.
Or late summer, that is. So that's a guy I feel like you're definitely going to see a lot more this year. Whether that's, starting a couple games or just coming off the bench.
Yeah, I think he's like solidly their number 3 guy now.
Yeah, for sure. And then behind him, Marquise Wilson. Appeared, in a bunch of games last year. Actually played a little bit of wide receiver.
Yeah,
now
he's fully corner now.
So, he'll, be same old, just solid bench guy.
He made a pretty awesome one-handed interception in practice the other day. That was cool. And he's got great ball skills.
Right.
Like that's one of those things. And his speed. There's a lot of speed in that cornerback room.
For sure.
Between Hardy, Dixon, Wilson, there's a lot of speed, which is always a good thing.
Yeah. And then, behind them, Cam Miller, a true freshman, he's drawn recent praise.
A little bit, yeah. Terry Smith talked a little bit about him the other night and said he looked pretty solid.
So, we saw, obviously, Kalen King a lot last year as a true freshman. I think Cam Miller's a guy that maybe you could see pop in for a few games, probably not play a ton. The room is loaded with depth.
The difference is last year, you didn't have as much depth. You had Tariq Castro-Fields and Joey Porter Jr., but then you didn't really know what you were getting with Johnny Dixon, and Marquise Wilson wasn't there, so the depth is better this year. So Cam Miller's not going to have as much asked of him, but he will definitely see the field in my opinion.
100%.
But
moving forward to safeties now. Another really strong group. Another loaded group. The starters are going to be great, but the depth is also phenomenal.
Yeah,
Jair Brown.
There's really nothing to say about him.
He led the country in interceptions last year.
Yeah, he's just a ball hawk.
And he's coming back this year, but like you mentioned, he's going to be in a different role. He's going to be in more of a Jaquan Brisker type of role, not just a true ball hawk. He's going to be, doing more on the line and stuff like that. I think that should be good for him.
Yeah, I couldn't say it for sure, but I think he's put on a few pounds and he looks bigger. I think he'll play in the box a lot, but he's still going to be great in the secondary as a cover guy. But the other good thing is he's really stepped into Brisker's hole as a leader. He got named a captain this year, and everything any of his teammates, any of the coaches say, he's always one of the first guys mentioned. And it's not surprising. He, like you said, he led the country in interceptions last year. So he's clearly made the step that they needed him to take in place of Brisker.
Right.
And so I think that's great. The spot next to him is the interesting one, which there's 3 guys who will play there. We don't know who's going to start necessarily, but there are 3 guys who will play there throughout the year.
Yeah, and Keaton Ellis is the guy you think of, at least early on, where you're like, well, he's been here forever. Presumably, he'd start, but then you're like, oh, wait, Zakee Wheatley has been phenomenal since the spring. And he's kept it consistent. And then on the other side, you have Jalen Reed, who played a lot last year and was also really good when he played true freshman. That group is loaded.
Yeah.
So you talk about Jair Brown as a leader. There are guys behind him who are could be just as good, if not better, eventually.
Keaton's the interesting one. Like you said, he's the veteran, but he doesn't excite me as much as the other 2 guys do. He's been here, he'll fill a hole, he'll maybe get the starting job out of camp. I don't know, but I don't think he'll hold on to it because I feel like the big play potential isn't there with him. I don't know. He did force 3 fumbles one year, but Zakee Wheatley transitioned from corner to safety this year, and he has just been getting rave reviews since the spring. He was a takeaway king in spring. He's tied with Johnny Dixon, or at least maybe not tied, but he's around there with Johnny Dixon in the fall. He just has a nose for the ball, and when you hear that, that's what you think his game is. But then everybody always says hold on, he can stop the run too.
Right.
So I think he's a guy who's he might be he and Jalen Reed. I think are just really going to be a good tandem there.
It's going to be loaded. I really like Zakee Wheatley in that Jair Brown role from a season ago. If Jair Brown is moving over to a Jaquan Brisker type of role in the box,
yeah.
You have a guy back there who is a ball hawk, but then you can also put down and like stop the run and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I think that complements each other like,
Yeah.
super well.
Mhm.
Jalen Reed is also really exciting to me.
Yeah.
He's not a guy who's like a takeaway king type of dude. He's not going to lead the country in interceptions.
Yeah.
But he's just really solid.
Yeah, he had a handful of pass breakups in his action last year, and just a good cover guy who's probably going to take another leap, just like Wheatley did. And it's hard to predict who's going to start next to Brown because you can make an argument for all three of those guys to see a lot of action, and I think they will. And it might even be a situation where they've all impressed enough that you don't have to play Brown every single snap. So you want to in the big games, but when you're playing in Ohio, you don't have to have Jair on the field all the time.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. As for the younger guys in that room, probably not going to see too many just because the room is loaded, but there are names. I mean, Christian Driver.
Yeah. Mekhi Flowers.
Yeah, son of Donald Driver. He is an athletic freak. He can play both safety and corner and also play wide receiver. So he's a guy I think we'll see mostly on special teams early on.
Yeah.
Mekhi Flowers is another name at safety. Also played wide receiver in high school.
Yeah.
Another guy I think you'll see on special teams. Another dude that excites me, who we haven't heard too much about since he stepped on campus, is KJ Winston.
Yeah.
He went to DeMatha Catholic in Maryland. That guy's really good.
You haven't heard as much about him as the Abdul Carter, the Nick Singleton, the Zane Durant, but every now and then one of the coaches would be like, they'll like throw his name in there, and it's like the way they say it, you can just be like, oh, he's flashing. That's a James Franklin word. He's flashing.
Yeah.
So I do think he'll be really good, but again, you don't need any of those true freshmen to really step up and be a huge factor this year.
I think it'll be mostly special teams if they see the field at all. Another guy, Tyrese Mills, who's coming over from Lackawanna. He's signed on as a DB, but he's been practicing with the linebackers. We'll kind of see where he fits in over time. So, I mean, he has 2 years of JUCO experience.
Yeah. It worked well for Brisker and Jair Brown.
Right. So maybe he'll be the next great Lackawanna DB at Penn State. But
yeah, who knows? It's a little early to tell.
Right.
Brisker and Jair weren't like who they are today when they
100%.
came over from
Well, that's
Lackawanna.
the thing. You can't give up on a guy early. I mean,
Yeah.
it's completely different coming from that setting to one of the bigger football programs in the country.
Yeah. But really, overall, this group is just extremely talented and should be the strength of the defense. It was a good secondary last year. I don't think there's any reason it won't be even better this year.
Right.
That's it for us. Thanks for watching. Have a lot more of these in the next few days. Like we said, we got a little behind, so we'll be pumping them out quick. Keep up with us. Purdue's coming up quick. Keep tracking along online at collegian.psu.edu and on Twitter at PSUFootblog and 1-0pod. Peace.